Are you looking to try out Ballistic, or are you a Ballistic main who wants to learn a few more advanced tips to truly master him? Well, whatever it may be, you've come to the right place, because I am the #1 Ballistic on PC with over 22,500 kills, with 20,000 of those kills being from last season, and I'm going to give you guys my tips on how to master Ballistic. I'm going to break this down like a normal guide, going through each part of his kit from passive to tactical to his ultimate, and then go over some playstyle tips and stuff that I've picked up along the way. So without wasting any more of your time, let's first get into his passive. Now, here, the passive for me is only really useful when combined with it all. Ballistic has a passive of being able to pick up a third gun. In the grand scheme of things, I think he could do with another passive. I mean, look at Rev. He's got like 1,000,000 passives. So, Ballistic's passive is really only useful when combined with his ult. It's not a good habit to get into to need 3 guns to win a fight, so I act like I don't even have a third gun until I have my ult. Obviously, this is just a personal preference. This is more so I'm not going to have to rely on 3 guns, because I reckon having to use 3 guns every fight is quite a bad habit to get into, so I would avoid this completely. I literally don't even carry ammo for the third gun, because I'll only ever use it when I have infinite ammo, which I get from my ult. So with that being said, when I look for guns to put in the third slot, I'm primarily looking for guns that are buffed when all gold. So I'll give you guys my quick list of favorite sling weapons and give a brief explanation why. First off is the Havoc. The turbo comes with the altered Havoc, and the fast reload time and the movement speed is insanely good. A turbo Havoc with that fast of a reload speed is genuinely OP. It is great. It's so good medium to close range. It's so good if you want to ult mid range, do some damage and then move in, and then it's also good when you're up close and personal. And the gun has enough bullets to feel like I'm a turret when I'm pushing teams. Next is the RE45. It's essentially a nerfed care package weapon from season 16. The RE comes with hammer points, and it just makes it insanely deadly as a third weapon. If you don't know, hammer points just increase damage to flesh, plus all the buffs such as the fire rate increase, fast reload, and all things like that that come with Ballistic's ult just makes it even deadlier. It also comes with a digi threat, which is just the icing on the cake. It's good to run when you're planning on being super aggressive and getting in the enemy's face. I often combo the RE with an AR, mainly the flatline, so I can do damage from afar and then push with the RE and basically get 3 kills. So I would recommend using the RE45. Next is the Rampage. The best part of the Rampage being in the third slot is when you're in your ult, the Rampage comes charged. The Rampage when charged is insanely broken, but combo that, like I said, with his ultimate buffs, it's actually stupidly OP. The fast fire rate, quick reload of an LMG, the ability to destroy doors, which comes in handy a lot. The amount of bullets that a gold Rampage actually has makes it a very solid choice. I often bait enemies to doors when I have a Rampage in the sling, because you can really catch them off guard as they try to play the door, and you just destroy it and kill them almost immediately. So these are my top 3, but I do also use any SMGs like R9, Car, Vault, things like that. R9 and Car are pretty good solid choices for the third slot. Sometimes I'll even run triple Car or R9. I know it's gross, but it's deadly for pubs. The Devil is also pretty good because it has the turbo. It's also fast reload on a LMG, which means lots of bullets, fast reload. It's absolutely deadly. It's definitely not one of my favorites, but it is definitely really good, so I would highly recommend it. The Mozam. Now, the Mozam is one that I actually don't really like, but a lot of Ballistic mains do, so I'm going to give it a mention here. Fire rate, the hammer points, the fast reload, everything makes the gun deadly up close. It is quite deadly. I'm just not a big fan of the Mozam in general, so that's why I don't use it. Also, the Alternator, which isn't in the top 3, but it is definitely one of my favorite guns this season. The Alternator with the disruptor rounds is insanely OP, so I would highly recommend that. If I had to put that anywhere on the list, that's probably number 4. And then the PK, and now I don't use the PK in the third slot too much because I prefer it as my secondary, but I have had the PK with the disruptor in my third slot, and it is insanely broken, so I would highly recommend those 2 as well. And they're my sort of top weapons for the sling. Obviously, it's all personal preference. I would highly recommend experimenting, maybe going in the firing range, seeing what kind of weapons you like, but that is my top list. They're sort of my go-to guns. If I see any of those, I'm picking them straight up and putting them in the third slot. If you guys have any others, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to know what you guys think. I love hearing suggestions from you guys. And if you guys are still watching this Ballistic guide, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It would really mean the world to me. So let's move on to his smart pistol. So last season, I would have told you guys his smart pistol was one of the most underrated abilities in the game. This season, it's been nerfed, and while on paper the nerf seems small, the nerf in fact has had a huge impact on how I use it. I used to use it medium to close range distances. Now I really only use it at close range to help in 1v1 or push scenarios. So my best advice for using his Q is to do just that. use it close range, use it mid 1v1 or as you're about to make a push into a team. It's still useful, but the time and damage reduction makes it most useful close range. It's now better close quarters when you or your team are making a push or you're in a 1v1. You'll be able to stop one of the enemies from shooting for nearly a second, giving you plenty of time to get that extra damage in. It can also take some enemies out of the fight completely, as a lot of people do tend to get scared when they are in Ballistic's queue, so they opt out for the fight, even if it's just for a short while, which is perfect for shooting them in the back or focusing another member of their squad. So like I said, it's perfect for when you're pushing. I used to use it at medium ranges because it used to allow me to sort of push up to a team. I used it as a tool for that as well. This season, I don't really do that because it's not really that useful. Another use for the Q is I use it to push into rooms, doorways, or around a piece of cover. I often during fights will put my Q down where I want to go, and then I will play the circle or the orb my Q makes. It stops enemies getting in my face as much, and it's very handy, especially when you're low, and if they do get in your face, they are punished for it. If you try to push into a room or an area that the enemy is at, and you Q where you or your team are going to push through, often the enemy will move away, which will allow you to peek that angle, push that angle, without the enemy being able to get as many free shots off on you. On the subject of using it more of as a way to control areas in the fight, it's also good to use it to avoid being pushed. The Q can be a good tool to corner off angles that otherwise could get you killed if an enemy peeks it. Granted, it may not buy you much time before they peek again, but even if it's for a second or two, that can be huge for the fight. If you ever see me play, you'll often see me Q where I think the enemy could peek, and that sort of stops them from peeking, or if they do, it gives me a little bit of pre-warning, because they obviously have to get into the Q before peeking the angle. It gives me sort of a fraction of a second to realize I'm going to get pushed from that angle, so it's also really useful for that. So while the Q isn't the most useful ability in the game, it has so many unique and different ways you can use it to really get the one-up on the enemy. You don't have to use it just for the overheating factor. You can use it to control the fight that you're in. Something I also do when I'm being pushed and I'm playing the door, I will open the door for a split second, place my Q on the outside of the door, and then shut it again. I can then have the upper hand if we get into a fight, if they or I kick the door down, or I let them in. Sometimes it can even scare the enemy away from kicking the door or fighting you full stop, allowing you to reset and do whatever you need to do. Similarly, I'll also, if I'm running away, will chuck my Q behind me. I'll look at the ground and place my Q so that if the enemy follows in my tracks, they will also get Ballistic Q'd. Again, absolutely anything in Apex can give you the upper hand in the fight, so it is very useful. It's also worth noting, if you want to use Ballistic's Q medium range, the only real use for it is to see what armors the enemy has. So if you want to use the Q medium range, see what armors people have, then you can use it for that. But that's its only real purpose outside of close range. Also, if an enemy is 1 HP and you still have your Q, just chuck it. The amount of pistol kills I've gotten because my smart bullet has chased the enemy who is 1 HP is comically hilarious, and it gets a free kill. Now, the final tip for the whistle is that we all know it locks on pretty easy, but if the enemy goes behind any cover, no matter how big or small, it will not go around that object and it will just face plant into that piece of cover. So a slight counter to this is when your smart bullet is locked onto the enemy, look up or to the side to such a degree that the smart pistol might be able to get around that piece of cover. So just flick up, down, left, right, whatever direction is best, and then you will hopefully see the smart bullet go around that piece of cover. It's very handy, and you have a higher success rate of actually having your Qs land on the enemy if you do this. I would get into the habit of doing this every time you're using your Q. Just Q once it's locked on, flick around, and then hopefully it will hit them. Sometimes it might not, but it just increases your chances of it not face planting into that piece of cover. Okay, finally now we're going to talk about the ultimate. Now, this is my favorite part of his kit. Like I said, his ult and passive go hand in hand. Now you know the best guns for the sling. Let's talk about when you should be using it. Simple answer is all the damn time. It only takes 2 minutes to come back, and if I have it, I'm popping it every fight. You get rid of the ammo RNG, you get gold max weapons, you can even carry ult excels, which I sometimes do to make it come quicker, because Ballistic is the most useful to himself and the team with his ult. I primarily use it when I'm planning on pushing a team rather than when I'm just starting out a fight. If you plan on getting aggro, which you should on Ballistic, pop that ult. It's too useful to not. Even if you don't get to use it for very long, just pop it because it comes back relatively quick. Because every kill you or your team gets, it's not even a full kill either, it just has to be a knock. You get 5 seconds added, and I've noticed that the ult saves me from a lot of third parties as well. So even if it's going to be a quick fight, just pop your ult because it could save your back when the third party arrives. It helps you in winning that fight because you get buffed guns, or your team gets similar buffs to you. It's so unbelievably handy that you should just be popping it every time you plan on making an aggro push in a fight. If your teammates maybe kill 1 or 2, then don't really bother popping the ult. Maybe just save it in case of a third party. But the more you play Ballistic, the more you'll sort of know if a fight is worth popping your ult for. But my best advice is to just be popping it every fight. Also, if you have no third gun and you ult, I'd recommend just putting your primary or your secondary gun in the third slot. Sometimes you may forget, or it might be early game that you haven't had a chance to pick up a third gun. So I would advise that you just pick one of your 2 guns and whack it in the third slot, and then just pick up the attachments after the fight is over and put it back in the primary slot. I do it a lot if the early game madness doesn't end and I never got a weapon I like in the third slot, so I just ult with one of my main weapons. Also, let's talk about the reload. The reload is so quick that I often opt to reload rather than change my guns over. If the 1v1 isn't nearly over, I will just reload my gun, use the same weapon, but if the enemy is low, I will just switch to my primary or secondary gun just to finish it maybe a little bit quicker. But honestly, the reload is so quick that I mainly just reload mid-fire. Next tip for the ult is if you're trying to approach a team or third party, you need to keep in mind that your ultimate is very loud and visible. You make frequent sounds as you're in your ult, and the actual act of you popping your ult is very visible even through walls. So either pop the ultimate a little bit away, out of the enemy team's sight, or wait till you're engaged in the fight and then pop your ultimate when the element of surprise is no longer necessary. And now, to end off this guide, I want to go over playstyle, because Ballistic can fill many roles. In pubs, he can be an opener and an aggro character, essentially the entry. In higher tier lobbies, I think Ballistic is definitely the anchor or follow-up legend. He can be the entry frag, but I think Horizon, Bang, all the meta aggro legends are better because of their ability to escape. He can rush in with his buffs and follow up on damage very quickly. He can output lots of damage. That is one thing Ballistic is brilliant at, is outputting significant amounts of damage. But you need to be very smart how you do it. Remember, you do not have an escape like most legends. Your playstyle with Ballistic should be aggressive. You can output damage, but remember, you're not Bangalore, Wraith, Horizon, or any legend that can escape. So be aggressive, but please make sure that you're using your positioning to the best of your ability so you don't get yourself caught out. Take angles, be unpredictable, don't push, and rely on your teammates to be there with you at all times. You need to be able to output damage and follow up on it while not getting caught in bad spaces. So if you have main legends that have escape abilities like I did, it will take some adjusting to, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be fine, and you will probably find you are going to improve, especially your positioning, a lot more. You'll probably find that you will improve at the game in terms of positioning a lot quicker, and you'll be a lot better at it if you are to go back to any of those other legends. And that is what I have for this Ballistic guide. I hope the tips were useful. I did try and give some more advanced tips while also making sure the basics were in here too. Let me know if there's anything I missed in the comments. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll keep this guide updated, and I will probably make more in the future. Like I said, I am the #1 Ballistic, and I don't plan on giving that title up anytime soon. So thank you everyone for being here. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.